Hey guys, okay, in the last video I showed you how we used a handful of macros. We had some word macros. We hit the button, the smiley face in Word, right? And we went from there into the Excel macros and went through the series of buttons that finalized setting up what would normally take a work day for somebody into like 10 minutes of work to create it and then get it into a template, okay? Literally, so reducing like a workday of work to 10 minutes, okay? And all the things that have to do with adding to the inventory of templates, that'll go on like forever because it's part of the idea of growth is to just always add on more templates that are totally different, right? And add in more modules. We're going to be doing that soon. The other thing, well, the other thing is that we're outfitting all those templates to be able to run off a var sheet, right? So we can have one var sheet that rules all those templates. Believe it or not, that's like totally doable now. And so as we continue to add inventory for any stacks of projects and put out new stuff, like if we did a project for you with 6 templates, then next month we can add in some more templates. The following month we can add in some more templates. You know, we can just keep doing this as we expand our inventory outward. Okay, so this is awesome. Now the next thing I want to point out is, what am I missing? So I showed you that stack and I showed you that. Oh, typography. This point right here, this is what I was aiming for. If you thought you understood the extensiveness of uniqueness, I'm about to blow your mind. So I was showing you all these templates, right? And I was flipping through them. And I was talking about, by the time we get this all incorporated and it's remote control from our end, we can run the images out for all these projects. We can make them work for any industry we want. So we can really work on taking over an industry because we can create more variation and more expansiveness within the industry than anyone else can do, right? And that's the point. All of this stuff will be fed with tokens so that they all can be controlled by one var sheet. So when we launch and we push these things out, they all update at once in a single day. Every one of these templates with whatever, like 100 pages in the sitemap per project, okay? You know, like a 1,000,000-page launch are immediately for your project, okay? So it'll take several months to get all of this lined up and ready for that. But as we add it in, it becomes more available, you know, a few more templates with every passing month. We're with every passing week, a few more templates. So really crazy. All right, now, if you thought that was neat, let me take it to another level because we want to make sure to go beyond all that, okay? Let me come back to this. This is something called the color palette, okay? This is what we call the banner color macro. We have a toolbar for that up here, banner color pages, and we hit a button to produce the files, right? And it produces the typography files, theme style and typography. Those of you who know how that works, it's all the coloring combinations that exist, and the fonts, and the banner height where that's applicable, and the opacity settings for like backgrounds behind words where that's applicable, okay? So the color palette controls these, all right? So let me see if I just blow this up a bit. I'm gonna try to make this point. These are called dark tones, right? So they are, or I'm sorry, dark tones, dominant tones. I keep wanting to call them dark tones because that's the basic concept, but they're the dominant tones. Then you have your mid tones, and then you have your light tones, right? Which really just means the opposite of your dominant tone. So if these are light, then this would be the dark variation because you have to have the offset or things are hard to read, right? Then what do we have? We have whites, blacks, and grays. So this is like white or fairly nearly white, like an off-white that's very close to white. These are blacks or fairly nearly black. They're dark tones that are meant to be really dark. These are grays. These are the midtones. So you may have understood that there are lots of combinations of these things, actually. And they're not even, it's not always that you need 2 dominant colors. You're going to wind up with like 3 dominant colors and no midtone. And then the offset colors, what you would call the lights, but the offset colors. And then your whites, blacks, and grays, right? Well, What do we have below it? Well, here's the thing. If we have a dummy typography file, it uses dummy codes that are going to be replaced with the colors we really want. This is even a dummy code list. And it shows in our four main templates what the dummy codes are. And therefore, when we set up those files like we did in here for each of those four standard templates, then it has all these dummy colors that are different. This number is different than that one. But then there are a bunch of these, like where this exists, it exists here as well. Okay, that's because you only want so many colors on the front page. You don't want it to look like a rainbow. It'll look silly. But, you know, I think you get it, right? So once you have the dummy codes figured out into each template that you're going to use, then they can be replaced with your color palettes. Here's the point about the color palettes. These are professionally matched color combinations, okay? These are resonant. They look good together, okay? So we can take any website that we add, like this one, and we can replace. So it doesn't have to be this light pink with light orange. It can be other colors. These don't have to be the colors they are. The drop downs don't have to be the colors they are. The button doesn't have to be the color. The hover over color doesn't have to be the color. And the text, see how it changes from a white text to a sort of purple text, right? Purple text to a white text. It can be different combinations. These don't have to be this particular black. This doesn't have to be that exact gray. As long as the color combinations are resonant, these can change totally to different colors. They can be greens or blues or purples or grays or whatever we think, right? As long as we use resonant combinations. Well, how many resonant combinations do we have anyway? Okay. Well, if you see what it says up here, this is banner color macro set 1. Okay. And how many are there? If I just go across, 73, 100, there's 200, there's 300 so far. So we could do so far already 325 versions, color swaps of this template. We can make 325 different ones of these that all look professional. But we have more than 325, it seems, right? How many do we have? Oh, man. There's like 674. So we can do 674 totally different looks to each template that's here. 674 different combinations already here, except that this is a color you wouldn't change, right? You make that a default because it's human skin tone, right? Gray to human skin tone. But everything else is amenable, you know. Still, theme by theme, we set up the standards and then we can back up from there, right? We can always go and set exceptions to the rule. But do you see how all this works, right? We can swap these color combinations out and Google considers it a different template because different color combinations are a big deal. Wow, that's 674. But how many do we have? Do we have like 1,000? Wow, way over 1,000. As a matter of fact, 1,500. 1,500. We could add to it. We stopped at 1,500. Because guess what else we have? Font combinations. Now, we have 3 font families by default in a template. That way, you know, you can have a certain font that would be for the headers, for example. Different font for the paragraphs. But then your sidebar. In order to make the sidebar stand out, one great trick to that is use a different standard font for that. Okay? So we have 3 standard fonts, right? That always show up throughout the pages just to create enough variation inside the template to look good. Okay, so those are our dummy fonts. So they are in the dummy positions on our typography tabs, like Valeria Round, right here. Okay, that's Valeria Round. So Valeria Round happened several times in that tab. But then Roboto happened several times in the tab, and Open Sans happened several times in the tab. But they're in the right places. Guess what, though? What if we replaced them with these other totally professionally looking fonts? That's cool. So Google doesn't always see the same fonts. Matter of fact, we have 100 different fonts. And if you take 100 that are here and you offset it by 1 and paste it down below, you've got 100 times 100 times 100. How many is that? 100 times 100 is 10,000 times 100 is a million. So we've got 1,500 colors times a million, 1,500 million, totally unique combinations as far as that goes. Let's just say 1,500 times 100 font combinations, okay? Because otherwise the numbers are too astronomical to even process anymore. 1,500 times 100 is what? It's 150,000 combinations of color times fonts. Well, what else do we have? In the case where the banner height is controllable, not all templates have that, but many templates have it. See this? This is a banner height. Below it, the page starts. In this case, the banner takes up most of the page, but not all of it. Could it take up less? Could it be shorter? Sure, it could cut off here. So we can make the banner height from like 500 to, say 700. Usually don't go too high because, you need your image to coordinate with that. Your image has to be able to reach that far down, right? But there you go. Once you know where your image can go, right? And that's part of our job, is to be able to make all this stuff coordinate. Then you can have each template you produce have a different banner height so Google doesn't see the footprint. So if you were to consider that another variable, then you could multiply that too. We've got it ranging from 500 through, I think it's 800, wherever the cutoff is for this thing. So these are totally different. So we're going to say change what would be the 500 to 504. Because as much as that doesn't look different to the eye, it's different to Google. Google sees that the banner heights are not identical. How's that for nuts? Another one is the opacity layer. So you know how on our banners, how we might have wording like this. Sorry, this is probably not going to be the best template to show you. Okay, we have wording like this. And if I highlight it, guess what? It looks like a layer behind the wording, right? So on many of our templates, there is that, there is that layer. Well, what is the opacity of that layer? Is it 100%? You can't see through that layer? Or is it less? Is it kind of translucent? Well, we set that opacity anywhere from 70% to 100%. You don't want to go less than 70% or else it just looks awkward. You want it to do its job of being a background opacity. But there you go. That's the standard is 70%. So in all of these, it's set to 0.7 wherever it is in here. But when we produce the variations, it's going to be 0.74 or 0.92 or 100%, right? So all these cases are different, aren't they? So think about it. Every different variation we create is a different stack of colors times a different stack of fonts. It's going to be these. Times the new banner height, if that's applicable, and banner background opacity, if that's applicable. So many variations that it's out of control, right? Now, all those variations, if we said it was, what do we say, 1,500 times 100, we're just trying to say that, is 150,000. And we said times like, this is literally 200. But we don't have to go that far. I don't care. Say 10. Then you've got 1.5 million times, this goes through 30, but we could say 10. You'd have 15 million combinations that can be produced. In other words, no matter how far we take this moving into the future, no matter how many projects we produce, the templates won't be the same. They won't be the same. They'll be different. Google will see differences. Some of them will be closer, some will be further apart, but they're all for different projects anyway. They're all going in different directions. And by the way, that 15 million that we're talking about is applicable by and large to each of these templates. Each of these templates can have 15 million variations of the background combination of colors, fonts, banner height, banner opacity, and as you can imagine, as time goes on, we could keep changing it. But right now, like the button That's controlled by a color. This could be a different color. Different color. These could be different fonts for the cost, right? Literally, it can be different font sizes within range, right? This can be a different size, a different font within range. Same thing. So we can create these templates. And you imagine that when we're doing this, they're not all for the same thing. This says cooking, right? But this template can apply to anything under the sun, anything. So all we do is swap the images, swap the color combinations, and change out the wording. And the wording's based on the var sheet for the project. And the images, of course, as we set these up and align them into the system, then we have the map for the image sizes that are required for each of these projects. So as we go generating all the variation images, they are the right sizes to handle the variation in the banner height and so on, so that we always have great quality results. That is what I wanted to say, that we can do 15 million templates times 150. We're in the billions of totally unique combinations. So we're so far into creating uniqueness with our backlink mastery that creates all the combinations of the backlink URLs, and the fact that we can do content splits, take a large paragraph and split it into two small ones, or three, whatever, and whether to insert subheaders in between them both or just one, and whether the backlink appears in the beginning of a paragraph or near the end. All of these are variables inside the Excel file because we can do nested variables. So we can have the page say, just look it up for this paragraph, look it up for that paragraph, look it up for that. And it'll just auto produce all those things automatically, page by page, in whole different ways. Google sees no footprints. One page might have a backlink in every paragraph. Another page doesn't. It's like a backlink in kind of every other paragraph. Another page will be like a backlink in a third of the paragraphs. Do you get it? Another page will be like a backlink in a quarter of the paragraphs. We can even have it with no backlinks in some of the paragraphs. We can, or all of the paragraphs. You can have pages with no links at all. So we can do all those variations easily, so that as we go producing uniqueness, Google doesn't see footprints. Okay? And by using all these templates, Google doesn't even recognize the source of the coding in the end. Okay? Literally different. Everything's different. Okay? This is how you get huge. And having little functionable advantages like this are really cool. I don't know how I would do that with other images. So unless you know and you can send us those images, I'm not going to offer that as a service. But if you like this idea for a template, then sure, let us know. All right, so these are things we can make for anyone, but they're also going into our huge website industry takeover project, our WIT project, right? We're expanding that. It's exploding, okay? So that's what I wanted to say. Unlimited tier 1 content with unlimited structure spreads, backlink mastery variation, alternate storylines, totally different images, totally different templates, totally different colors times fonts, times banner height, times opacity and stuff like that. Whatever else we want. Rearrangement of where items belong on a page. Okay? Like again, something like this and something like this could be swapped, page by page, right? It's the way we can do it. So for all these things, the variations that we can make off of them, and the fact that we can move sections around on the page too, so that even as you go through these, you don't see the sections in the same order. We can erase all the footprints by creating so much uniqueness and making it about your project. And we can make anyone larger than anyone else. We can make anyone larger than everyone else, which leads me to my next topic. So I'm gonna create a break here, because the next topic is kind of also its standalone topic, and it's absolutely awesome. Again, how far are we? We were on the tip of the iceberg. We went about a third of the way down. Now we're about 2/3 of the way down. I'm going to explain the last third, and that'll be the next video. And that is awesome. Okay,